see the things that's been asked to me, we just don't know so many things. Maybe because we have memorized the thousand hands and eyes sutra too much. We don't know a lot of things, and it's not a small problem. And also when I said Venerable Jugan, they were also asking if it's the previous head of Dongguk University. Although the essential practice, asceticism practice of Buddhism is the samatha and vipassana, well, the normal disciples of Buddhist doctrine, since they have been taught the vipassana and samatha in a wrong way, they don't even take it to the extreme or practice, but well, although the thing that they understand is not Buddhism, since they do the different sorts of practice and say samatha and vipassana, and they ask what are they, and they also say they can just directly go into meditation. Why learn about samatha and vipassana? If that's their theory, then we don't have to learn about these teachings at all. Well, after a depth understanding of vipassana and samatha, even though meditation can be discussed about at what level, and you'll be able to understand it in a proper way, but without any proper basis, if you talk about a difficult math formula, if without even learning addition and subtraction, but if we talk about the most complex form of math formula, then there is no way you can solve the math formula. And those things are very pathetic, but fortunately in Tibet and also in Southeast Asia, the teachers continuously, without any rest, they talk about them, since there is no room for useless argument, since there is a debate. But in Korea, we talk about so many different things, and although there are more than 10,000 people gathered there is no one who can argue it back. And that's also because the stubbornness of the Buddhist theory is so strong, so that they're not even to talk about it, because the stubbornness is too strong, and also since it leads directly to their benefits, so it is also not processed in a proper way, and they just gather people and earn money and try to be more famous. It doesn't matter which religion ever it is, but they continuously do that. So they said those whoever is religious will go to heaven. But Yu Byung-won, he had so much money in his pocket, and when he goes to heaven, all the pocket is going to have a hole, and the money is going to drown me out. And so because of the greed for the money and also to go to heaven is in collaboration. So maybe that person will go more all the way to hell. And if it's not greedy in both ways, then maybe his greediness will be 50% cut off. But his greediness is so strong. So even in terms of vipassana and samatha, if you by listening to it once, it's very difficult to understand. So you have to listen to it again and again. And also after listening, you also have to know that this is samatha and vipassana. And it's also very good to know it clearly. The study of logic in Tibet, does it refer to the vipassana? Well, I'm going to talk about this because it's related to our study. where the Tibetan, well, it doesn't fall into that because we study this in order to have the proper ration or proper rationality or proper logic or proper perception before we do our practice. So if you want to eat rice in autumn, then you need to plant. You need to sow the seed, rice seed, and you also need to know what is a seed. So, what is the theory of rationality here? Is based on the consequences, we figure out what is the cause, and it is a study of that. And why do we do that study? It's because all the speeches about Buddha is based on this. So, for example, when you say we have a consequence which is called Buddha, then from where did it start? And Buddha has spoken about this very clearly. Buddha has spoken very clearly that when he saw the lotus Buddha, he wanted to become the Buddha and he thought about it. And also now you have to look what are the conditions. What are the conditions? The Bodhisattva's condition is also clear, which is 6 parameters. Bodhisattva and compassion, aspiring it, and on top of that, if you do the parameter practice, then you have the consequence. And if you don't have that, then that's the logic, right? But if you don't have that, then you do not have the. Well, if you say if you become Buddha, for what reason you have become Buddha? And Shakyamuni, because he said he has a sense of bodhisattva in front of Lotus Buddha, we accept it. But if we argue if that's the accurate saying, we also have to inspect. And that is also the study of logic. Where here the third logic can be studied in 3 different ways. The first is the virtuous saints of saints. After becoming a saint, he has never spoken a single word of lie. So even that is not a lie. So we take it as one. And second, we have not seen it with our own eyes. Have you seen it? We have not seen it. We have not seen it and we have also not heard about it. So how are you going to believe it? Well, we can believe it based on the consequence that he has become a Buddha, which in fact we have done the farming. So he's harvesting and eating rice in autumn. That means he has actually planted rice in spring, and also he has also harvested it. We can also know it. Now what is it? Based on the result? Well, we don't see the light, we don't see the flame, but based on the smoke that's arising from the behind of the mountain, then we can see what's going on. So even through this, we have seen that Buddha has done it. Next, we have the thing that we have seen it, or heard it, or been directly told, and well, it's the like reasoning or measuring from the manifest. So we have kept saying what Buddha has spoken about continuously. So based on the fact or reality, it's not like we just believe it blindly, but the fact through the logical reasoning, and through the logical reasoning we double check. It's a fact that can be believed. The sutras are all done in that way. So as question here, it's not the study of logic in Tibet, but it is just the study of logic in Mahayana, and that is based on the cause and the consequence. We also know how it's been studied. This is not about the vipassana. But when we do the samatha and vipassana, after attaining the samatha, when you try to do the vipassana, this helps. But when you study the study of logic, it actually belongs to having or acquiring the proper perception. So when someone says, we have to say clearly that when we say it's not saying, well, the saying is actually a result. But we also have to find out if what Buddha has said is actually something that can be proven, or if it has a proof. Well, if we say that's a saying that's without proof, we say that's not true. But if the saying is something that can be proved, then we also say that saying is okay. So if they have the proper perception, when someone says, we understand it right away. Well, when we say, if they will be happy if they stop talking about something useless, that means the saying which is actually not true. And if there's a saying that you can make a soybean paste with the dung, which is actually wrong, well, we call them useless sayings. But if there was a car accident, the car broke down, the human being has not been hurt. If you say the person has been saved with the virtue of Buddha, that's not true. Then if it's a virtue of Buddha, then it should have prevented the car from having an accident itself. Then what is wrong here? Where the cause of the accident you have provided. Someone said, that person came and just bumped into me. Although there is a 90% of mistake with the opposite party, you're actually in cars. So when we see the results, we are able to identify, although we have not made the mistake, the foundational error, or well, if there is no car, if you're not in the car, then there's no way that you would have the car accident. If you look at it from the point of view of very basic, then you also have a cause or role to play in that part. So when I say stop talking about those useless things, it's almost like after you planted beans, you are expecting the red beans. Or you say there's someone so sacred that if you only believe, then whatever you do, you'll be born in heaven. There is something so wrong. The things that you said just before and also your behind saying, they're so different. Here you look and said it's a bean, the other side is you say it's a red bean. It's almost like that. That kind of thing in Buddhism, how you should understand and also how you think. So you divide it from those three things as been previously said. And that's the study of logic. And so if you want to find out if the saying is actually true, or if it's actually something that's going on, or if the result can be what you see, you have to they look at it from point to point. Since there's a content that is spoken about from point to point, where the study of logic is that. Second, when you meditate, the imagery doesn't belong to vipassana, where that's just a method of having it. It's just one of the methods. From Daegu online, visited our site, and she's happy that she is able to study. And my answer is, please study hard. Well, that's not a question. With one form, you have to keep your mind at thing that protects every other logics that's been previously talked about. Do you remember the imaginary? As mentioned in Samewang, the protector of the lay were having the body of God. Where here it's the conditioning, so the mind, by keeping it, the part where you're going to concentrate or the object you're going to concentrate, the object part or perception. Normally our mind resides in the object, the habit itself, but normally when we arise this mind and where it resides, normally it resides at the target of our desire. And once it collaborates with my likings, it also has the attachment. So whether it says a lot, so normally also sometimes it resides in your child. So normally mothers, they stay 60 to 70% in terms of your children. So when you meet, you talk about the results and also their health conditions. That's all you talk about. That's because your mind is all there. After that, if they have a little attractive face, then they only discuss about what to do with your appearance, whether to take off the mold at certain price, and that's all that they talk about. If the mind remains in such a place, then we call it quite useless. Indecent, and also these books which were written in a quite useless way or in a useless topic, that we also said they books worthless. But nowadays all the things, these indecent thoughts or indecent things, I don't know why people pay their money and buy those books. I don't know where it helps by looking or reading them. And so if the mind stays in such areas, at the object or our desire, or if it doesn't befit my desire but stays at where I detest, and we blame and we hate. And so if we try to treat North Korea with sense of hatred, then that is also that our hurt remains at a pessimistic point of view. So if the karma grows stronger, it is also not beneficial at all. We also say while you hate, you are actually becoming like the person, right? Once someone came and was cursing her husband so much, but later when she came with the husband, I noticed that she and her husband looked alike. They were quite similar. They were not very different. And so you also look like them while loving them, or you also kind of become like them while hating them. So if your doesn't stay like that, or but try to maintain your heart here is if the mind stays there and concentrates there, there's no problem. There's no problem. On the other hand, the the Samantha here is maintaining your heart at place where it is not wandering around but trying to concentrate at the right place. And amongst them, Udo is going to follow up, so we're going to leave it here. So when you are actually imagining Avalokitesvara, if we when you imagine thinking of her in this form, it's going to come later. So just because we said so, do not follow what is being said here. So when you actually are going to do this, the level that they teach you here is just on the verge of understanding. It's teaching you just to understand, but the actual practice in the level of actual practice, you have to come here in person, and you have to learn it case by case, customized version for each person. And also, if each individual are not at the place where you can actually do the vipassana, you cannot just go to a teacher and say you're going to do the vipassana. It's almost like you go to a teacher and at elementary school and say, I know how to count 1, 2, 3, 4, and so teach me the math formula. Then the teacher is bound to tell you that you need to learn how to do addition and subtraction and come back. Because the karma, because each individual has different karmas. Some people, by nature, they have energy that's floating, and some people they are very, they can fall into slumber very easily. And some people they're so there's and they have been so spent that when they sit down they cannot rest anymore, and also they're very restless people, and you have to kill those things first and then do it. Kill those characters. So if we say when you do running, we cannot just say we are going to run from the first time. You have to prepare our body for running, and only when our muscles becomes a little harder and the muscles that needed for running is a little trained, then we can do it. So the trainer has to look at it well, and the trainer has to say, well, this person is good at this and weak at that, and the weakness has to be repaired, and then only we can run without getting hurt, and he can work as the athlete for a long period of time. Even the meditation in Tibet, basically to have the proper perception, they teach you for 20 to 25 years, and even the believers religiously and also almost like compulsorily they have to learn it because they have not gone to the monk school. When the monks they start off with the book, then they just finish the book. And even and also the students, when they need to say, oh, I have learned from the teacher about this book and I have completed this book. But us, what do? We just roam around or sit around and lie around and read the book and say we completed this book. That's not actually study. And also nowadays, because you have studied Buddhism in this way, you just compartmentalize Buddhism to your own convenience. And even the members of parliament, they also say in some text, it's some text they talk about this and that. They only know what to say, but they don't know what is it.
우리가 뭐 어쩌고 저쩌고 지금 대성이 뭔지 알지도 못하는 게 말만 주워다. 아 우리 김영삼 전 대통령 대도무문 그잘 쓰지. 대도무문이 뭔지 알지도 못해.
But most of those politicians who claim to know about Buddhism and try to use the Buddhist theory, they don't know about it.
뭐 자기가 장로라고
Their actions and their speeches does not match.
그 문화재 불상을 보고 고개를 획 돌려버리겠어? 대도무문도 모르니까 그러지. The point of concentration in order to practice samatha is diverse. The thing that I emphasize again and again to you is only samatha in Korean Buddhism, only samatha. To all practitioners, even the believer is the same. I need to stop reciting the script, and now I have to start off with the asceticism practice. Whenever I hear that, I wish to break it off. Even doing the good deeds is an asceticism practice, and also studying the scriptures, they're also the part of practice. If that is not practice, then what is practice? It's also a practice that I follow the 6 parameters, and those actual practitioners with the proper perceptions, they don't even do that or say that. But if you say those practitioners do not even have to follow the sutras, then it's almost like they're saying the cart can actually proceed without a wheel. That's something that doesn't make sense. And so samatha practitioner, if you say in this bottle, if we have cough, then we have to do something so that we can reduce the smoke. We can reduce the coughing. And if there is also some salivas, then, or if we have some mucus, then we also have to reduce it. If there is an open wound, then we have to do something to close the wound. Right now, what we claim is whether it is the stomach ache or whatever disease it is, this medicine in this bottle is something that's amazing medicine that happens or works out for everyone. There is no medicine that is working for all disease, and actually it means all the disease in this world cannot be treated. First, when the antibiotics were first found, they said that's a medicine that can cure everything, but it doesn't work for cancer. Even MERS, even antibiotics, it didn't work on MERS. That's why Buddha, for the good of all sentient beings, well, we also say that if we only know how to control our heart, it's fine, but it is not so. So even when we sow the seeds in the farm, it feels like everything is fine if you only sow it, but you have to fertilize, you have to put fertilizers, and you also have to water it. It's the same if you have a child. If you just give birth and if you just leave it, then see how your child turns out to be. You also need to breastfeed, and also you have to give them porridge, you have to clothe them, and you also have to take care of them and bath them, and you also have to play with them. There are so many things that you have to do. And well, if you do not spend time with them, playing with them, then there is also a gap in their personality. So Buddha's teaching, it does not stop at one thing. The mind, when it is something that arises in the beginning, and so it is just it is just taken into a deep consideration. But so many different conditions that's given in mind, it is not something that can be cured so in a simple way. So even Samantha, the things that are arising from the mind, many different problems that's arising from the heart. It's almost like when you just put a bean sprout, you have to pick up the good ones. But nowadays, most of the beans are quite healthy, so it's okay. But in olden times, you have to go into the farm, and there are so many different types of beans there. And then you put them on a big table, and you have to tilt the table about 5 degrees and do a little shaking. And sometimes you also have to wear magnifying glasses. And only the rounded ones can come down. Then you pick them up, and then again you do that. You repeatedly do that. And whatever is only at the bottom, you wash them well. And if you make it bean sprout and they don't rot well, if there's one thing that's rotten, then because of the heat that's emitted when it's actually sprouting, the bacteria is spread around, and most of them gets rotten. And just like that, in reality, our mind, which is so many different things that's inside, you have to come into one. And that's why we say it's one aspiration. And the mind is something, if you do not provide them a place where they would concentrate at, then they would go wherever they want to. And also the mind is so free that it doesn't need time, it doesn't space. It can go to future and go to past. And well, building 12 houses is future, right? And having a cow metal goal is your past. And so it talks about, oh, what happened when I was in high school or when I was a child. It's actually a past. When I think of it now, my husband at the time, I should not have met them. That's also a past. So the mind, it does not have future, past, it just moves around, and even the space is way faster than the light. Well, the light needs to travel for many years, but I can just go there in an instant. Mind is something that doesn't have time and space to travel, and so there's no way you can hold it to one place. And other than Buddha, no one has been able to develop the technique to hold the mind into one place, or keep the mind at one place. And since there's no one other than Buddha, many people who claims to have know the technique, the Taoism, they said, sit down with closed eyes and enter into a place where there's nothing. Whether it is so, it's actually you're falling into the part of slumber. So the Taoism, who has practiced a lot, they cannot talk well. But when I say when you go to Sanebanjam, you see there are seven like saints there, and there if you judge them with nowadays, there is like high blood pressure people. They have this big belly, and if you try to talk to them, probably the answer you get is it a dream or is it reality, where as a human they no longer have the wisdom to deal with the human life. And also Hinduism and also the Brahminism, if you talk to them, what happens is they will close your eyes and they enter deeply, and they ask, am I alive or am I dead? Well, I'm not dead yet. With the thought that am I alive or dead, that means I'm not dead. And they enter so deep so that even when their hips get rotten, they don't know. It's not like they have entered into subconsciousness, which is unconscious. So it's a wrong way of developing the human brain. Islam's or Christianity, they cannot even control the heart. They cannot control the heart in depth. That's the property of their mind, and so the method to control it is something that you need to hold it. So there are many distracting things, indecent things. They need to distance themselves, and you have to also develop the Diamond Sutra. Where two of you, because you're aging, you look like sisters.
두 분이 연세가 드시니까 또 자매 같네.
Who is younger?
예? 이제 보니까 또 자매 같아. 어? 응. 누가 동생이요? 예?
Because mind is so free. Well, just like when you are actually trying to get the
금강석을 캐면 안에 금은 조금씩 백했지만 돌이 99.9%다.
get the stone, a diamond, then it's the same.
불에다 넣어가지고 그냥 녹여서 금만 쪽 빼내.
With one aspiration, you have to melt it, and you have to take out the diamond. Well, if I put it in a metaphorical way, it's like this. Well, even the gold, you have to, and there are many different ways to get the gold out of the whatever the goal is before. So even here, the object of the concentration, or there are a few of them. So here it says the method of practicing samatha is various, but it's not very various, but there are just few. In Tantra, in a special way, they take the practice of Buddha, or even something else as the object of samatha. Here, the practice of Buddha is Buddha that I take as my total reliance. Amitabha, you meditate on Amitabha and you proceed. You take the Amitabha as the object of your wisdom. Well, Avalokitesvara kept occurring here. If you take Avalokitesvara as the object of your practice, not only samatha is practice, but you are also finding similarities of yourself and Avalokitesvara. So if I take Avalokitesvara as my main meditation point, then through samatha, not only I'm able to achieve samatha, but there's also effect that I am also becoming like Avalokitesvara. So if you want to become like samatha, you have to imagine. If you imagine something else, like if you imagine a thief, then you're actually also becoming a thief. But even the example is very extreme.
얘도 참 너무 극단적으로 들었다. 그래서 이제 그 본존 수행이나 또는 이게 이제 요 수행에서 여러분 이제 그 인도에 종자음 있죠, 그죠? 종자음 그 오.
Well, with the sound, you know this sound in India, right? So
우주음이라는
this is the basis of the sound
우주초의
of the
한글 자체를
vibration,
알죠,
the
그죠?
initial vibration sound
그래서
of the
이제
earth. Well, I have not heard it, so I don't know. But
우주음의 우주가
whether
지구가
it's Om,
그 진동을
with the
할
very
때 그
initial
첫
sound, you
음이랍니다.
can also
내가
start
안
with
들어봤어요.
the
모르겠는데
meditation.
하여튼
Just
그래서
understand that there are also different
옴자가 이렇게
methods.
이제
If
그
someone
초음을
does
가지고
something like that,
수행에
do
집중해서
not
수행하는
say
방식이
you're doing something
있다.
useless.
그런 것이
Just
있다는
say that,
이해만
oh,
하세요.
I see.
누가 그런 수행을 한다 그래서 뭐 그런 거 뭐 쓸데없는 걸 하는가 그렇게 그런 소리 하지 마. 아 그런 거 허요. 그런 정도로 내가 하라고 얘기하는 거예요. 네?
It's not only Tibetan, but even when we do, when we recite the Taras, it starts off with Om. It's the same. It's a universe sound.
나오죠, 그죠? 준재지는 따라보살지는 그래서 옴자가 들어가서 옴자는 이제
We also
정장이라고
take
그래요.
like those things as the basis or object where we practice our samatha.
사마타의 마음을 의지하는 대상으로 삼기도 한다 그
The
말이에요.
practice of exoteric practice that they talk about here take the shape of Buddha itself as their object.
주로 부처의 모습을
Well, that's
그대로
what
대상으로
happens in
합니다.
Tantra and in exoteric Buddhism. We're only talking about here the Mahayana.
현교에서는 지금 이게
Not only Mahayana I talk about, but also if you compare this to Korean Buddhism, there are also some people who also does the key phrase meditation and also the mantra. So I'm just giving you a different ideas, but basically they're talking about the Mahayana here.
그거는 전반적인 얘기를 갖다 이제 여러분에게 쭉 해주지만은 어쨌든 여기는
In exoteric Buddhism, they take Buddha's shape as itself. In Dhyana, whether Dhyana is something that whether a Buddhism or non-Buddhism, they follow in general. Well, it's not something that they do everywhere. There is a place where they don't do it. In Korea,
다 수행하는 것은 아니에요. 요 없는 데도 많이 있어요, 그죠? 우리나라 천도교가 무슨
if you say the Korean Chandogyo, they don't do it.
그래서 이제 뭐 이제 그런 종교들
But the practice of Dhyana in China, Taoism,
선정에 관한 것을 하는데 그러나 이제 그 이 선정 수행을 하는 데는 중국에 있어서
and even Confucianism, although they talk about
경물치지하는 성찰한다라고 했을 때 성찰을 얘기하는데 그건 너무 약해. 그리고 하는 방식이
although they talk about introspection, I think it's quite weak. And so even Samantha, by their method, I think you could also have some problem with psychology. From the limited I know, the Confucianism, they do not have the practice Samantha. In Taoism, they do have, but they, until so far, they have not reached to a point where agony is being stopped. There's no one who has yet claimed so, and also there is no one who has spoken at the level where their agony has been cut off. And it's same with the Hinduism or Islamic.
그 지금 이제 바라문교, 힌두교도 역시 마찬가지라. 회교도 마찬가지고. 그래서
when we say that it's a practice that's generally done even to non-Buddhism, I think it refers to the Brahmin or even the Taoism. In other religions, it's a little weak or difficult to say they do practice Samantha. Followingly, the Buddhist believers is quite advisable that they take the object as the Buddha. Likewise, if you remember Buddha and if you accumulate merit, then you also will also get many merits. It's not only Samantha, but you have other benefits too. If I give you an example, it's my personal experience, so there's no need for you to take it as something that is general.
이건 내 개인적 경험이니까
It was not long
공식적으로
ago that I became a monk, and I went to a small shrine, and there it was a very nicely drawn tanga, and there was a Buddha statue that was about 100 or 200 years ago. Very small but very pretty, and it was inside a temple which is about 2/3 of this size. And I was passing by, and I went in to do to pay a little respect. And I asked him, and when I went in, there was nothing there. So I asked him, and when I asked, where is it? And he said he moved them away. When I asked him why, he said, in the key phrase meditation, even the Buddha statue is also something that doesn't exist, and even Tanga doesn't exist.
다 그건 허구고.
That was the response I got.
뭐 헛것이고.
If you don't have the proper perception, but if you only have the speech or the spoken phrase, then those people who has done it, or
사람이 화두만 갖고 딱 했을 경우 딱 그 화두를 한 사람들이
then people of the lower level, there's a higher chance that they will understand what people at the higher level has spoken and do accordingly. And since he's about 25 years lower than me, well, even teaching, well, it's not very easy to him, and I wonder if he was a little psychic. That's what I thought. But even having the Buddha statue, I asked him what harm does it do, and he said it doesn't make him happy, because when he does his own meditation or asceticism practice, he has to do offering. Well, he has been a monk for about 25 years. And so I said, you should also not eat. And that time I spoke, in a way that doesn't that we don't speak to elders. When he said, today does a statue eat food?
뭐 불상이 밥을 먹나요? 그러더라고.
Offering to teacher, I don't think it has anything bad. It's actually a good culture or custom. This can happen in this way. And so, in olden times, teachers long ago, offering and also speaking, they never neglected them, because the Buddhist teaching would, in a way, reach to an end. That's why they did that. And therefore, in Mayana, we practice imagining Buddha's shape, and they, just like my own father, if they pass away, you only have the pictures, and through the picture, you see your own father. Just like that, you think. When they think of Buddha's statue. So even when you do the meditation, imaginary meditation, if you're sitting, you see the Buddha statue. It shouldn't be too high. It should be about this height. This is the height which you can do the meditation. The reason why we ask you to have a statue or tanga, just like that, at any time Buddha is with you, or when you do the meditation, you can observe them in the mind. You are having that object in the house, and just like that, we are asking you to have them at the point of view or practice. But that too, in olden times, the monks made mistake, and they said, if you have statue of Buddha at home, then the gods follows, and That's why even in Yesu there are so many ghosts.
집에다 불상을 모셔놓으면 뭐 귀신이
And that's
있겠느니
why
뭐.
there are so many people who just
그래 지금 여수도 지금 계속 귀신이
leaves them here stealthily and walk
그래가지고 뭐
away.
살짝 갖다 놓고 또 가버리는
Therefore,
사람도 있고. 그래.
in exoteric Buddhism, they take the shape of Buddha as the object in dhyana. In dhyana, whether it's Buddhist or non-Buddhist, is a practice Samanta is generally practiced. And therefore, those believers of Buddha is better to have the form of Buddha. And if you remember Buddha and also accumulate merit, you will have many benefits. The precious seat of Buddha, have the imagery, have the observation of imagery of Buddha sitting on a throne, the precious stones.
그러면 이제 요걸 이제 하기 전에
You need to meditate about the height of the forehead, which is similar to our body height, and that shape has to be in detail and should be emitting light. But you should not do it however you like. If you do not have a strong lower abdomen, then the energy is bound to spring to the upper parts of body, and there are so many different difference as per individual. So I'm just explaining you that there are many different shapes. So even when you recite the mantra, it is just that momentarily you are imagining and having the observation. And so gather your hands and you pray to Buddha and many disciples and the sattvas here. So when you do the observation of imaginary observation, do not do it lower, but do it as per the about the height of the where the Buddha is sitting. So the monasteries in olden times, they have made it so that even when you're seeing from outside, you can see them. But nowadays, in order to build it just big, they have just made it big. And because they don't know so many things about the observation of a conception in our mind, many of them do not have the proper structure and also the form. You know the Hunguk monasteries 원통 John, where I also study in detail, and also I received a call from a monk who has been doing research, and he said the Hunguk monasteries 원통전 is the only monastery, is the only place in Korea. It should be the national treasure. So there, well, if we do not have a proper observation, then we lose everything that happens in the past. Well, we have been doing the water and land ceremony since 1990, and when we do it, we the first we sprinkle water to east and clean.
동쪽에 한번 물 뿌려서 동쪽을 깨끗이 하고, 이세남방 덕청량.
When we do that ceremony, what do we require? In the center, we need to have the Avalokitesvara, and in the temple is there in the center, and the floor is supposed to be go round, and the door is supposed to open to all four sides. And the person inside doing the ritual, when he's actually having Buddha there, the first. From the door that's very far, there's a ceremony that we bring him in. Before doing that, before going there, we do the ritual of pleading.
we sprinkle water to east. So we open the east door.
하는데 이제 청소식이야. 이게
Whether it is pine tree,
실제로 이제 동쪽 문을 열고
we dip it in the scented water and we sprinkle the water.
소나무 잎이든지
And we do it to all four directions. And Hunguk Monastery is like Sonam Monastery is Wontonjeon or Naksansa Monastery Wontonjeon. Because they didn't know later, and they have closed all the doors and they have gotten rid of the floors. And Hunguk Monastery is the only place that still has it. Wontonjeon is Avalokitesvara Hall, or the Hall of Bodhisattva or Great Compassion. But I also went inside that Avalokitesvara Hall and went in, and I also thought we should try to make it a national treasure and obey the custom still remains. That's also what I think. And so there are some little changes, but we can also fix it. And the slight modification, we can still fix it. The Bodhisattva Hall was built in 1964 when the war with Japan ended in 1858. They started the land and ocean ceremony since 59, and about in 1960s it was built. I found that note from the roof that's inscribed. I tried to find information about it, and the Bodhisattva Hall is there, and for the ceremony, before we bring Buddha inside the ritual, if we have a look at it first, I thought it'd be great. So even those things, if we are Buddhist and if we also have the financial background, maybe we should try to do the land and sea ceremony as it is. Sometimes they also do it from 3 to 5 days, and if grant, they also do it for a week. And I thought we could do the ritual too, and we could also try to include Sunchan and also Korea, and whether it is a government or government people or the common people, everyone gathered and tried to do it, and that is a land and sea ceremony. I don't know where we led here. So when you go to Sonam Monastery, and if you go to the hall and see, even the Hunguk Monastery's door is a little modified, but if you see, there is a little like a wooden block, and well, there's only one door, but normally it is actually that there's one more wood, and the below door shouldn't open, and the top part can only open, and even inside the hall, we cannot come inside the hall supposedly, and even this teaching, we are not allowed to be inside, and so even the disciples, they will sit down outside the hall, and if I thought maybe we should also try to have the door once again. We only have the Buddha and even the candle. If we sit down, we should only be able to see the top part of the candle. So when we talk, we have to look up towards the Buddha and speak. That's the actual structure. But nowadays, they just make it grand, and they just want to look upon it. Or everything is led to the Buddhist hall, Buddha hall. Well, I think we also have to go back to history and try to look at it more. Well, when you are actually doing the observation,
the minor way of observation is, well, if I keep my neck straight on the upper part,
길을 수평으로 해서 이렇게 보면 요 위쪽에
we just imagine have the imaginary observation of Buddha, and the Avalokitesvara is actually sitting on its seat.
앉아 계시고 여기에 그대로
So whether it's in the Tanga or
평화에 모시져
we
있거나 아니면 백이간샘을 하거나 안 그러면 기룡간샘을 하거나 안 그러면 뭐 양육간샘을 하거나
the form or the imagery as it is, we just try to imagine. But if it keeps moving, then well, actually it moves too. But we have to concentrate on that and have the imaginary observation.
쭉 관상을 갖다
But normally when we see
보통 보면
on the head of the Avalokitesvara, there is Amitabha.
정수리에
We also say
항상 요 계시죠, 그죠? 그걸 화불이라고
that
그러는데
is
관세음보살이 그렇게 아미타 부처님을 항상 관상하고 계신다고.
there is also the metamorphosed Buddha. So, but that means you always remember Buddha. But normally we, other than we have the Buddha, or we just have money, right? So we say president, member of parliament, or mayor, or money. That's the only thing that we keep up to our heads all the time. And other than that, women, we generally have like children on our forehead. So the religion that we believe in is usually the money religion or
뭘로 깨닫는 동교 말고
something else. That's why we just have a common life, living like lay people.
속설없지.
You have to have the imaginary observation in front of our eyes, in the air, in the similar size to our body. And you have to have the observation about the height of the forehead. Well, when we do it, if we imagine the eyes, or if we observe eyes, then maybe some other parts of face disappear. So likewise, related to it, we also drew tangas. You know, when we draw Buddha, regardless them, we just throw the forms. So when we go to some meetings or some things, we just are asked to draw Buddha. But when you go to Tibet, we can see that most of the Tibetan monks, they can draw Buddha. We think of it as art, but they don't think of drawing Tanga as art, but they think it's a method of their asceticism practice. So they are different from us. It's something that we are doing it wrong. We just leave out everything and we claim that we are doing the asceticism practice, but what are we actually doing? So even Echun Kutenlai, who is coming here, they all know how to draw the Tanga. Also, even the observation of mandala, they came to White Lotus and did the mandala, and even that one. Instead of Buddha, the person who does the imaginary observation of mandala, they can, instead of Buddha, they are able to do the mandala. The Tibetans, those who follow the Mahayana, they don't have the system broken at all. They learn those sutras and have the proper perception, and through many different ceremonies they do offer. Last time the Ladakh monks came and did it, and that's all seven offerings. And the things that they did there was the seven offerings. Normally, when we say the 6 different types of offerings, when I think of it now, I think it's wrong. We offer tea and we call them, but it is not so. It's just one.
그거는 한 가지야 그냥.
The 6 offerings are one from the 7 offerings, one has been eliminated, and that's the 6 offerings. So
지금 불교 TV에서 참회법 나오는데 지심기명예 위덕불하고 절하잖아요.
we cross word after one mantra, and that is not the actual the way of repentance. But since we don't know, we think of it as also the repentance.
그것도 참회법이야.
If we don't know, then well, if we are foolish, well, we could also be courageous, but also we could also do many wrongs. When you say the 6 different offerings, so even the praying and also the repentance, everything is part of the offering. But we should not think of it as offering rice, fruit, and many different things as 6 offerings. Since although we offer it as 6 different offerings, they're actually just one. They just belong to one category. After talking about this, I feel a little tired.
그래서 이제
So in places like Tibet, well, even when I went to Hinayana region, they all have the Buddha and they all have the Tanga, and they all pray and they repent, and that's what they do all the time. They offer.
참회하고 항상 그래. 공양 올리고 다.
We don't do them, but we still say we follow the Buddha's sayings.
진행을 한다고 그런지 모르겠어.
Well, since we have everything already organized in monasteries, so it's well easier to do them in monasteries. But since you cannot come to monasteries all the time, so we ask you that if you could prepare them at home, a little place where Buddha is, so that you can always do it, and you can also imagine that Buddha is always there in your house, and even when you're at praying, or even when you're making your own repentance, so you should always have the thought that he's always there with you, even when you pray, and that's how they do, and that's why wherever they pray, since Buddha is there with them, how sacred would the place be for them? And they promise that, okay, this is how I'm going to do, and they also show great respect. But we do it when you do the repentance or meditation. What do we say? We say, oh, shall we just prepare a little Buddha? And when we go and pray in front of Buddha, and well, if there's nothing there, when there's no Buddha, nothing, then to where are we doing it? The basic posture changes.
기본 자세가 달라져 버려.
That shouldn't happen.
그러면 안 되는 거야.
We have to imagine that the Buddha is here in front of us, and naturally, because Buddha is here, we light him a lamp and offer him the light. And since there is too much different smell where I live, I'm offering a license. And since you're here, I'm going to offer a tea. It's not like Buddha, you need to drink cold water and get back to your senses. It isn't so. It's not even funny. We offer him a cup of tea, and Well, even if when we have a friend coming here, we also offer them a cup of tea, right? But to Buddha, you offer cold water and you drink yourself a cup of tea. That's quite funny, isn't that so? And when Buddha is here, we offer him a cup of tea
그럼 이제 부처님 와 계시다면 차 올리고
and since we welcome you a lot for coming, we offer a flower.
정말 환영합니다. 꽃 올리고 부처님께서 일종씩을 하셨기 때문에 사시가 돼서 공양 올 때는
Buddha only had a meal a day, so
안 드셨어. 쌀이면 쌀 한 가지 듣고 과일이면 과일 한 가지만 드셨으니까.
and so we only offer a meal a day because Buddha only had one meal a day as a respect to it. So even if it's a fruit, since it's here,
과일 한 가지라도
where there's something that's very natural,
그거는
it's something very natural.
자연스러운 일이잖아요, 그죠?
So if you don't have the thought that he's here, and since if you don't have the observation of, then there's no need to offer.
어떤 상황이 돼 버리냐면 올릴 필요도 없는 거라.
So we are misunderstanding that while living in a cave, even those who climb to meditate, when they live in the cave,
참선한다는 사람들이
for them it's a cumbersome work to cook and offer something. So what they do, they just lighted a candle and just prostrate once and quit it. But I don't understand just offering something to Buddha. I don't know what restrictions or what disturbances it causes to the offering or to meditation or to your citizen practice. The more you do in front of Buddha, you have to have the thought that you need to do it more harder, and you need to have the thought that you wish to become like Buddha.
내가 저런처럼 돼야 되겠구나 생각이 더 강하게 일어날 거 아니야?
How is that going to? How is that your own disturbances or restrictions? The shape has to be in detail and also has to emit light. Here, what does it mean? You should not think that the statue has come here. Just like light, he has become a light and is in front of us. You have to think so. You have to observe in meditation in this manner.
이렇게 관상을 해야 돼.
And if you have the observation in that manner, then even for your concentration, first when you have the tanga, well, even they just to draw a face to have a tanga, the fastest and the simplest drawing takes about 3 months. Sometimes when you ask them to draw faster, to draw 6 months work, if you ask them to draw fast, then about 2 people stick together to draw it. Normally it takes about a year.
보통 1년.
But this and that is all similar, right? So sometimes when
그래 이제 나는 뭐 그거나 저거나 비슷하잖아요. 근데 떡볶이를 가지고 그
I drew the Avalokitesvara, so you need to have the water, and I thought they just drew it with some.
깨를 문양 있잖아.
I just thought they just drew it, but when I saw it with the magnifying glass, it's very difficult to see because it was so tiny, so thin.
가는 그러니까 눈으로는 잘 안 보여. 이 떡볶이를 가지고 봐서 확대를 시켜 보니까 그걸 갖다가 밑에
To draw the water, the person has drawn about 30,000 times. Only to draw the water, the wave, it took about 15 days.
넣는 것만 해도 무려 15일이 걸린대.
Well, so I didn't know what to say, and while doing that,
그러니까 뭐 말을 못
when
하겠더라고.
they try to imagine Buddha in their mind, they can just have his image right away.
떠올리면 바로
So even when the communists try to erase it, they couldn't erase it because it's inside, because it's here. They cannot try to. It's not something that you can erase with eraser, and even to do the torture.
Even when they were being tortured, they were just meditating, imagining Buddha. So even when they're facing death, there is no fear for them.
죽음을 맞이하더라도 겁이 없는 거야.
Since the bodhisattvas are going to lead their way, and since they have their own fate that's already concrete, there's no fear for them. Where the soul they cannot be imprisoned,
그뭐 가둘 수 없는 영혼이라고
the monk who escaped, who was so tortured by Chinese, he was in prison for about 20 years, and all the people who went inside with him were killed, but he is the only one who survived, and they put the electricity, the light inside the mouth, and since it's still and since it hurt so much that he beat it and all his teeth broke off, and he was tortured so badly. And even the monk, he keeps saying that after he escaped, well, we met about 2 times. Even then, it never occurred to him that he should have revenge or there's no rage inside him. It's amazing how they do their asceticism practice, and even their method is so amazing.
대단한 분들이라. 이 수행하는 방식 자체가
So, despite all his torture and all, he doesn't have the sense of anger or grievance to them, but he was always scared that he might lose the compassion for all sentient beings. But if you see it in another way, it means he was afraid that he might be blaming for them. Well, so he was actually praying those people who were torturing him that I hope they do not go to hell because of him, because of me. But what do? We pray that that person would lose everything just because that person has cheated us with money, and when we lose all our teeth, so we cannot curse him anymore. We even put more implants to do that, where the human mind should change in that way. So when I listen to Dalai Lama,
편히 가야 돼. 그 내가 달라이라마 말씀을 들으면서
well, after seeing the monks in Jogejong fighting, Dalai Lama asked me right away, are they monks? Well, what should I respond? What should I say?
내가 대답이 어떻게 해야 되겠어?
I said they are monks who pretend to be monks.
대답이 뭐라? 비구 인척.
Well, I didn't say exactly in these wordings, but because he was asking me in a serious manner. Well, outside in the outer appearance, they are wearing the monk robes and they look like monks, but they have not got rid of their own greediness, and so, well, even inside, you cannot see that they are monks.
속으로는 비굴한 놈들이고.
So Dalai Lama said,
그러니까 존재 뭐라 그랬어?
a monk is
비구는 말이야. 그러시면서 딱 비구는 말이야. 너 목련 존재 알지? 예.
you know,
때리면 그대로.
even if they beat you, you should not blame him or blame them. And if they beat you death, then you should just die. And if you are afraid of being beaten, then you should run away so that you are not beaten. The one of the Buddha's 10 major disciples, who is Maudgalyaνα, you should be like him. Monks should be like him.
뭐 서아무개 총무원장 그순뭐 진짜 뭐 같은.
Where there was also chaos, where there was a case, one person brought about 20-30 gangsters and done worse than ever. Well, even in our Vinayanas, it's all written that there can never be a
율장에도 분명히 다 있거든.
saved again. So it's not like they just have
그냥
to leave
탈옥을
our
하는 게
Buddhist
그런
sects,
게
but
아니라
it's almost like an
심판을 도처부터
execution.
보면 뭐냐면 사형 선고예요. 그 사형 집행을 채찰 도첩이
If
완성되지
with
못하면
that kind of sentence,
승
they can never become a monk in this life.
복구가 안 돼요.
But well,
근데 지금
but the head of our Choge sect, he has retrieved his position. Well, I understand that he did it because he has no idea about becoming monks, or well, he's of the same person. But
존경이 말이야.
the fact that I don't understand is the supreme monk, he has restored his place with I don't know what to say. Well, if he doesn't have a proper perception, then at least he should be quiet. Then he doesn't know what to do, but he has actually restored his state, and saying that's for the greater harmony. Well, harmony is not achieved in that manner. When we say a harmony, see, when we grow a bean sprout,
화합이라고 할 때는
as I said before, we have to take out the rotten beans first. Then only there's a harmony between the bean sprouts just growing. But then if you put a rotten bean there, then all the bean sprouts will be ruined.
콩나물 자체가 썩어버리자는 거죠.
So as it is said, you should take out what is wrong.
분명히 삿된 것을 골라내는 것을 얘기합니다. 화합은
There was also a saying that if the mass agrees to something, then they can even eat a cow in the monastery. Well, even if 90% of people say so, well, even if the 9 people say so, and even if there's one against it, then you should not follow the majority. But for the harmony of the Jogejong, well, I don't understand. They have a great influence. They can kill someone and they can also reprieve someone. They've also given the execution sentence, and after 20 years, they took out the curse, and they have also put the bones and flesh back and retrieve the person. That's also something so weird.
희한한 법도 다 있어.
Well, if you don't have the right perception, just like that,
이게요. 바른 견해가
whatever the
없으면,
name is,
그와 같이 바른 견해가 없으면
the problem is serious.
뭐 이름이 뭐가 됐든지 간에
This time, the Catholic Pope, he went to the South America and said,
뭐그저 중남미에 가가지고
well, he's not very, he's
참 능글스러워.
and I think he has shown the proper color of a Catholic, and he's also very sly.
남미에 들어가서 스페인이나 이쪽 사람들이
The Catholics, they have done great deeds to the Red Indians. It was even worse how they treated their dogs, and they eradicated all the Indians' ancient religions, and they built the Catholic churches there. And he said he's very sorry for it. If they are sorry, then they should get rid of all the church and also whatever they build there, without any counter actions. If he only says he's sorry, well, from South America, they should all of the churches, they should move out, and in order to pay back for their killings for 200 years, even if they pay back everything they have, I don't think that's going to be enough. But I found it very funny when they said they're just sorry and they were over with it. Germany, who has killed 6 million Jews, Germany has paid back for everything. So a leader shouldn't do so. If there's something that they have done wrong, then the leader has to say not only that they are sorry, but in Buddhism we say that even in your heart you have to think you're sorry, and even in reality with your actions you have to get back to where they was. And but Catholics, they have done their ceremony in South America, and only verbally they said they are sorry. That's not okay. That person doesn't know about the history. There's something that's not acceptable. When there's something going wrong, then soon you have to change. You have to change and return the place that like about 200 years back we have killed so many people, and for 200 to 300 years we have also done a religious oppression, and even there they did witch hunting, and even they were together with politics and kill a lot of people too.
정권하고 협력해서 죽이고 그랬잖아요.
It's not because they're in the high position, but if they don't have the right perception, then everything is very weird and very funny. Well,
하도 이제 그 전에 엉망이었기 때문에 그 정도라도 하는 사람이 있으니까 그나마 그래도 조금 뭐 괜찮은.
where if you look at it from point of view of the law, or if you look at it from the proper perception or proper way, then whatever that they have done wrong, they have to pay back for everything.
당연하게 해야지.
So about the observation in meditation, I have already spoken about, and I have told you what are the ways to observe and imagine. Well, in Tantra, there is something like this, and also in exoteric Buddhism, we also have this kind.
현교에서는 이런 관상법이 있다.
On mandala or even on statue of Buddha, you concentrate, and you need to have one aspiration. And
집중을 하면서
since you have concentrated on Buddha,
과정과
you miss Buddha, and you also need to grow the energy towards Buddha, and they arise as a subsidiary means, and that's a very important characteristic of Mahayana. And so have the thought that there are things like that. And next,
그래서 이제 있다라는 생각을 딱 가지시고 이제 다음에 내가 이제 그 좀 더 사마타의
not only Samantha, but I'm also going to talk about many different things, and I will give another talk next time. If any questions,
질문 있으면 하세요.
ask me if there is any question.
질문 있으면 해.
I asked you to first have the Avalokitesvara meditation by observation. Well, the one that you're saying now is a little different.
명호에 집중하는 방식이 달라.
So if you just recite on 관세음보살, well, it's on the sound, and also
그 소리 내가 지금 하고 있는 소리와
where but this one is on the sound, the other one is on the shape. So if you do it together, then there are two different branches of the mind. So it's not okay, and that we are going to talk about in next lesson once again.
없어요? 네? 예? 여기에 그
We have made the donation book for the Nepal case.
책을 만들었거든요. 만들었으니까
We spoke about this last class, and in front we have written everything.
그 내용을 이렇게 써놨습니다. 다 이제 써놔서
And
이제 그
for the whole, it's about $100,
그냥 한 10만 원 정도씩 이렇게 하기로 했고
100,000 Korean won, and for the village and the school, about 50,000 Korean won. So hope you take it, and
했으니까 여러분이 이제 다 좀 가져가셔가지고
just like your donation back in the time when for the monk groups, I hope if you can get some donations. Let's end today's teaching here.